Good morning and welcome back to Transformations Facebook Live podcast. And this week, again, we are honored to have a special guest, Commissioner Mike Rivera. Alongside of me is our usual co-host, Joshua Camacho. It's a blessing to have him here as well. And again, we want to thank all the viewers who continue to follow us and encourage and support the message that we're trying to send out to the viewers in finding treatment out here in Berks County. So, as always, I always tell you, I ask you guys that if you guys want to hear a powerful story or read a powerful story, you can always go on Amazon and find Transformations, How to Get You 180 Degrees. You can, if you're looking for services, you can reach out to myself. My number is 484-772-7079, or reach out to me on Facebook Messenger, or if you want to email me, transformationslc14@gmail.com. And we have Joshua Camacho here, who's always ready to answer questions or help guide somebody in the right direction to start their program of recovery. You want to give them your info?
You can call me at 484-926-8358. You can reach me in the inbox on Facebook at Macho Camacho. And if you're into the email thing, it's transformationsjosh.23@gmail.com. Any questions, anything you would need, just give us a call.
Okay, and today we're here at the Berks Rise Center. As always, this is where we shoot our podcast. And this week, like I said earlier, we have a special guest, and we have Commissioner Mike Rivera here. And I asked him to come in and share some words of encouragement, share a little background of how the disease of addiction has affected his life, and then help encourage and tell, the importance of us doing what we do to help the community find treatment in their lives. Welcome, Mike, and good morning.
Lee, good morning. Thank you for having me here. Always a pleasure. It's great to be with people that do great work here in the county and serve our community so much. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. So, Mike, if you want to give a little background on how the disease of addiction has affected your life personally.
Yeah. Okay. Well, when I told my story, I said maybe wouldn't have even been here, literally. So going back many years ago when my father was a teenager, he was living in Puerto Rico, grew up there, and he wasn't leading the best life. So he had problems with drugs and alcohol and so forth. And he was, thank God, able to find Teen Challenge, and they send him from Puerto Rico. They send him up here to Rardsburg. I think Teen Challenge had only opened recently. Before that, this was going back to 1967, 1968, around there, even before I was born. So he comes up to Teen Challenge, and his life is transformed there. And my grandfather, who was a Mennonite pastor, he passed away, he was a Mennonite pastor for many years. He would go to Teen Challenge to share God's Word, and my mother would go to play the piano and to sing there during the service at Teen Challenge. And that's where my mother and my father met. So my father's Puerto Rican, my mother's Pennsylvania Dutch. They met at Teen Challenge, and he was able, because of Teen Challenge, because of the services they provide, he was able to turn his life around. So I say, had it not been for Teen Challenge and what they did there at Rardsburg, I probably wouldn't even be here today. So I'm very thankful for the work that Teen Challenge does, and for the work that people do, helping people that need that support and help them get through that, transform their lives, and be able to live a life and have a family and be a benefit to the society. So it's got to water up a lot of times when I talk about that, because I say, had it not been for Teen Challenge, I probably wouldn't even be here today.
Wow, yeah, that's powerful, Mike. I've heard you tell your story a few times in the past, and I believe it was at the recovery walk last year where you had mentioned that you only wish that you were able to hear your dad tell his story and how powerful that would be. How powerful is it for somebody to share their story of addiction and then coming back and fixing their life up?
So like you said, one thing about my dad, he turned his life around, but he was, I would say, ashamed of what he had done in the past and didn't want people to know about that. So when he came up here to Pennsylvania after he left Teen Challenge, he started taking Taekwondo in Pottstown, got his black belt. When I was 6, we moved down to Puerto Rico, and he started a school down there, and through martial arts, he helped a lot of kids. He helped them change their lives around, helped them, grow up to be people of good for the society. But one thing he never did was to actually share his story. And that's something that I look back now. He passed away 10 years ago. Actually, it'll be 10 years now in December. I said, one thing I think he could have had a lot more impact is if he had shared his story and said, hey, this is where I was at. I don't want you to go through it. Then this is how I changed my life. When you look at your book here, when you share a story, that's a lot more impactful than just saying, well, you can do this or you can do that or this is what you need to do and that's what you need to do. Because when you share a story, you're talking about someone who actually did it, who was there, who went through the process, whose now life has changed, so they know what you're going through, they know your pain, they know your struggles, and they can empathize with you. So sharing stories is extremely, extremely impactful. And I always tell people, you know what? When you're out there and you run into someone who has a problem, you know what? Share your story. Tell them, hey, I was in your situation. I was in a similar situation, and I was able to get help. There's a lot of resources available out there. But share your story. That's hugely impactful for people to know and sit in front of someone that has said, I know your struggles. I know what you're going through. I did this. I did that, and I was able to get the help that I needed. And now, I'm in here trying to help you. So, people, share your story. Don't be ashamed. We're part of at the county. We support what's the VCPS and their R3 program for second chancers who are looking to change their lives, and they go through an 8-week program which helps them find life skills, job skills, and it focuses primarily on the trades. And I have the blessing of being able to speak to the group that graduates every 8 weeks and say, you know what, everyone needs a second chance no matter what it is. And I always say you need more than a second chance. You need a third chance, a fourth chance, a fifth chance, but you have to share your story. Telling your story can have that impact on someone and say, you know what, I want to do what Lee did. I saw where he's at, I see where he is now. Joshua, same thing. That story is what's going to have an impact on people's lives.
That's right. I agree wholeheartedly. I mean, just the fact of the story is not just it's the ability to be able to explain to somebody that when you were at the very bottom, you couldn't figure out how to do anything right? But then you found the motivation, whatever it may have been, the power, the persistence to actually put together a plan to get your life together. And a lot of times that just shows an extreme amount of strength that people, like myself, when I was in active addiction, I just could not find that strength. So to be able to, share that with somebody else, that when you're beat down pretty bad, like I was, you can still find that strength somehow, some way to build yourself up. And it's truly powerful, because I know for a fact that a lot of people who are still in active addiction just feel like they don't have any more to give, right? Especially if relapse was a part of your story and you've had to do this rebuilding process a few times. So it's tremendously important.
Right. When you're telling your story, people know that you've gone through what they're going through, so you can truly understand that. One thing is to go to a counselor, go to someone that has studied about addiction, that has studied about the program. But another thing completely is when you've gone through it, when you've experienced it, and you know what the people the person that you're talking to in front of them, you know what they're going through because you've been there. A lot more powerful.
You said something it's so powerful what you just said about shame. His dad didn't ever share his story because of shame. And that's the biggest struggles that our viewers have, is the shame to come out and say, I do have a problem, I need help, how can I get started? And those are the people we're trying to reach. We have a lot of viewers, I don't know if I shared with you, but it goes worldwide. We've helped people in the UK, Australia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Philadelphia, New York, asking for help. And, the people that are out of this county and out of the state, we have to, direct them to the hospital, go to your nearest hospital and ask for help. So that's what they do. But shame is the biggest barrier that everybody has, and it keeps people sick, which is sad. And that's the stigma that we're trying to break, is that it's okay to ask for help and say, I'm in a place, I'm in a very dark place, and I don't know what to do. I don't know what's the first step, right? So our job is to help encourage people to reach out, 484-772-7079. You can always walk into the hospital and ask for a warm handoff program. You can always walk into the Bricks Rise Center Monday through Friday, and there's going to be a staff member here that's willing to help assist you and direct you in the right direction to start a program of recovery. We're looking for any individual that, even if you're still using, we're going to meet you where you're at. You let us know, listen, I'm struggling, I'm using right now, but I want to stop. Okay, we'll meet you right where you're at. We'll tell you what steps you have to take to get started. That's what we're here for. We're here to help guide you along your struggles. That's it. What do you have to chime in on?
Just know that, even if it's just a conversation, at the end of it, if you just need somebody to listen, that is what I am going to do. You're not going to give me a call and I'm going to be barking orders at you on what you need to do to change your life. That's not how the process works. You'll talk to me or Lee. We figure it out together. It's not just a one-way street. But at the end of the day, 484-926-8358 is my number. We're going to start being better at linking our numbers in the description. That way, when you guys come back and watch the podcast over, they'll be right there. We do know that sometimes we get to talking about a lot, and maybe the numbers could get lost. So we'll start doing that. But just know, if you need the conversation, if you just want to start the conversation, you just want to vent, please give me a call. Especially anybody on my Facebook page, more in the inner city. That is what my mission is to just make the conversation more comfortable for us to have. Being able to, just talk about it, even if we don't jump right into a plan. Let's just start the conversation.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm going to say something that's important that you've been talking about is there are resources out there, and if you need help, you need to call. But you also need to reach out, but you need to reach out to the right people in the right place.
That's right.
You have Rise, if if it's during the evening, during the weekend, go to the hospital. Not everyone wants the best for you. And that's unfortunate, especially if you live, surrounded by certain people that they're maybe pushing you or encouraging you to keep on using, to keep on being the same person, because they don't want you to change, because you support what they do and you encourage them back. So reaching out to the wrong people can also be more detrimental than help to you as well. So it's important that you reach out to the proper resources, and that's what you have here at Rise. The people that want the best for you, that are going to say, you know what, yeah, let's talk, let's help you through your problems.
And if you're homeless, if there's housing opportunities out here, that there's programs that they're targeted in an environment of sober people. So you have EDI, you have the YMCA that has transitional living programs, you have the Hope Rescue Mission that also has programs, you have the Opportunity House. What other ones am I forgetting? Women, they got the Safe House. Is it Safe Perks? That's it. So there's a lot of resources out here that you can use. You have TASK, you have recovery coaching services. There's a lot of help out here, but we don't know where you're at. And if you're out there and you're struggling right now, all you have to do is text us, Facebook message us, and we will link you up with the right services that you need. Because everybody that is out there who is struggling has their right is to live a better life. You want to be a better citizen in the community. You want to have a better quality of life. You want to be able to be around for your family. You want to be around for your kids. And that's all we want for our community. We want to better our community so you can help encourage other people in the community to do better as well.
I was having a conversation yesterday with an individual that I knew from way back when, so to speak. That would be the way that I worded it. And, you know, it was just, he was just asking me, like, you know, how did I do it? Or, you know, questions like that. And, you know, I don't necessarily, I'm not comfortable yet in those conversations, to be honest. I just tell them that the honest to God truth was that I was tired of living the way that I was living, and I didn't want to die like that. And the fact that he told me he could relate, those are the moments that make me do what I'm doing. That's why my passion burns so bright, and, you know, my heart is in this, because I know that said individual wouldn't have had that conversation with just anybody because of where, how we grew up. We didn't talk about this type of stuff. We didn't, you know, congratulate each other. We didn't do hugs and things of that nature. But just the fact that the conversation, that I'm able to help individuals have that conversation, is the mission. I didn't promise him, you know, everlasting wealth or anything like that, but I did promise him that I'm so much more happy today than I was 5 years ago, and there's really no comparison to it. Yes, I still have bad days, we all do, but these bad days are nothing like those bad days. And, you know, all I really did was put in the work, and that's just wake up every day and give everything I have to not pick it up, not use it. And just over time, I've gotten better with the stuff that we talk about. You know, I'll call a mentor, I'll call my sponsor. At the beginning, I didn't, though. So it's just like, I try to be as brutally honest with anybody who talks to me, to let them know that it's a process, and it's okay to not have it all figured out right after we get off the phone. That's unrealistic. Watching this podcast and getting off of it and then thinking, I got it figured out. Thank you, Josh Lee. We're gonna go. That, I mean, it's just unrealistic. The reality of it is that it's gonna take time. We didn't ruin our lives over, you know, with a snap of a finger. So it just takes time. And I promise you guys that if you put in the work, I'm gonna walk right beside you. And I know that Lee and I know that our commissioner, we have so many individuals in the community that are literally gonna walk right beside you, and you are not alone. That's the biggest thing I want to say every single time we do this. Is just letting you guys know that you're not alone.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Josh. I know we keep talking about shame. We keep talking about people sharing their stories, and I remember my first year. You know, my pathway was church. I came into recovery through church, and my first year sober, my sobriety date is May 4th. On May 5th, which used to be a big day for me, I used to DJ on the side, so I would throw big parties. That was the first holiday of the year, and that's when I would throw big parties. So May 5th of 2013, I was in church sharing my story of my addiction and how far I've come in 1 year. So from that 1 year to today, it's so many different changes, so many different positive add-ons to my life, but there was also a lot of deleting going on in my life.
Yes, sir.
So as I moved forward, I lost people, but I gained more.
Yes,
not that the people that have been left behind from my past were no good for me. I was no good for them at that time that I was in my life. I always talk about, I was in a 20-year marriage, you know, and I hurt that lady so bad, mentally. I never physically abused her, but the worst abuse that you can give somebody is mental abuse. I can't say that she's better today, right? I'm sure she's living a better life, but has she done all the work that caused the pain has to do to get to a better place? So that's tough. And, you know, as a person in recovery, I know these things, but I can't fix that. So I've gained life, I've lost people, I've gained my children back. We have rekindled relationships. Are they perfect? Nope. They could be better. You know, we don't get everything we want, but life surely is a lot better than what it was. I'm able to communicate better. Do I still make mistakes today? I sure do. Especially working in the community, it's the hardest thing that one can do because you are open to everyone's eyes, everyone's ears, everybody's talking about you. So when you commit to a leadership position, you have to you're committing to accepting the fact that you're going to be talked about. You're going to be, there's going to be stuff said about you. You're going to be accused, and you have to accept that because that's the position you took, right? So being a community leader, that, you know, you have to be open to this. And these are things that affect people in recovery in different ways. So if we don't continue to work on ourselves, we won't be able to be good for anybody else. So we got to keep moving forward. And that's why I always say life is a journey, and everything's a process, right? Everything, the progression comes with the process of our work that we do within ourselves.
And I'm sure you can touch, I mean, I can only imagine, you know, with, I'm a guy that, when I was growing up, I wasn't really big on titles because usually a person with a title meant authority in my eyes, but now I know that that's not the case. And, you know, with the title that you carry, I'm sure that's such a great deal of responsibility. So I'm sure you can really relate to, you know, that aspect of it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's, again, you know, people that know me, I'm Mike, I haven't changed, you know, but I do try to use my position for the benefit of the community, and Lee knows that, you know, accessible, listen to people, but yeah, you know, because of that, people, because you're out in the community, because you're a public figure, people do look at you. I think the hardest part of it, a lot of people know me because they've either seen me on TV or, you know, they met me somewhere, but I don't know who they are. You know, so you always have to be on your best behavior when you're under the, so I think that's good, Lee, but no, you know, it's true. But the good thing is that when you are in a position that you're able to help, you have to do that. You said last week you had Mayor Moran here, you know, it's he's always out there willing and able to help as well, so something you have to do. But I want to go back to something you said about, you know, your past and your ex-wife and things that happened in the past, and something that we have to remember as well, you know, when we're going through difficulties. And I think all of us have things we've done in the past that we've regretted. And a lot of times people allow those things to continue to haunt them and can't live a happy life and can't move on into the future because of what they've done in the past keeps on dragging them down. What's done in the past is in the past. You can't change that. You can't do anything about it. What you can change and what you can do differently is what's going on now and what you're going to do in the future. So you need to use the past to learn from it, to say, this is what I did to my prior wife, I'm not going to do it to my current wife. This is what I did to my children back then, I'm not going to do it now. I'm not going to do that with my grandchildren. I'm going to do this differently. I'm going to do that differently. And we have to learn from our past, but we can't dwell in our past, because if we dwell in our past, we're not going to be able to move forward and live life to its fullest.
That's right. That's great, Mike. Thank you. So another thing that Transformations provides here, we have these harm reduction kits that we hand out in the community, and so the Council on Chemical Abuse supplies us with the Narcan kits that we hand out to the community. But we also have the fentanyl testers, and that's for the people who are still currently using, so they can test their drugs and make sure that it does not have fentanyl in it. And the purpose of that is so you don't die, right? Don't take that chance where you're gonna die. So you're using responsibly, but at the same time, we give you literature on how to find the services that you need when you're ready. We're there to meet you where you're at. These things are also available. These kits are also available at Franklin's Breakfast Shakes and Burgers. I want to make sure I get that name right. I've been saying it all week. So you can always go in there and just ask him about it, and he will give you a pack of a kit for yourself. Now, in these kits, we have 4 testers in there, 4 testing strips, and if you need more, just ask them. But make sure that you also take the literature, so like that you are able to connect with somebody to help you start your pathway of recovery. And remember that the pathway to recovery that you choose is what you're going to be assisted on. Just because somebody is a 12-step, like that's their program, doesn't mean that that's the program for you. You can go to Celebrate Recovery. You can go to church. You can just go to The Forge. They have Men Empowering Men support group, which is awesome. I go there. That's a great place to meet every 3rd Wednesday of the month at Alvernia. If you're local, just go there. It's from 5:30 to 7:45. The 3rd Wednesday of every month. The next one's on the 22nd of this month. So, just finding yourself a support group. The important thing is that you're not alone. Isolation is the biggest piece that keeps you bonded and imprisoned in your addiction, because you're left to your own devices. You want to get out of yourself, get around people and a good environment with other people who are in recovery and willing to help encourage you and mentor you along your way to start a better quality of life for yourself, right?
Yes. Josh needed to get away from Josh. That was the most important part in the early parts of my recovery. But I just wanted to go back to the kits. 2 things about the kits. One, I'm going to be out into the community. I was able to hand out a few over the course yesterday afternoon. Unfortunately, I didn't get to record it, but I'm going to get back out into the community again sometime, probably either next weekend. But with the kits too, if you know anybody who's still actively using that, you know that they might not know what they're using, these kits are also for you to be able to pick up one. If you have a loved one who's still using, who you're scared of, maybe not controlling their drug use, these kits are for you. So just please don't think that, for our viewers that may not be using, these are for both, for people actively using, and as well as if you know a loved one or a friend who is using, that you want to introduce them to, they might not know that it's out there. So just please, if you think that anybody, pick one up. You never know what it can do. It can save somebody's life.
That's right.
And Franklin's, they're on Penn Street.
Correct.
Right?
There, I think
Right.
Attended Penn. It is literally two buildings away from the corner of 10th and Penn, directly across from the elementary school. It sits right across the street from the bus stop on 10th and Penn.
10th and Penn here in the city of Reading.
Yeah.
Because I know we have people from other states, from other counties, even from other countries. So that's here in Reading, Pennsylvania. Yeah. So just a question for you. So if you have someone here that's watching you, and they're from North Carolina, from South Carolina, from somewhere else, how can they find these resources? What's the best way? Can they call you? Do they call if there's a Department of Health where they're at? Or someone's watching, how do I find help?
So what I've done in the past, in the last several months, is that somebody reaches out to me from out of state. I'll do research for them. They'll reach out to me. I'll research it and like their area, find out if they have a single county authority, find out if they have a hub where they go and get the supplies that they need or the services that they need at that time. Or I encourage them to go to the nearest hospital and explain that they have an addiction problem, whatever that addiction may be, and see if they can find themselves into treatment. That's what I have been doing currently, and it has worked. There was a lady that couldn't find treatment because she needed something. She needed to be drunk that day, and she wasn't. She was trying to stop. So, I encouraged her to stay sober. She stayed sober, but they wouldn't send her to treatment due to the fact that she was not drunk at the time she went for treatment. So that's always a barrier.
With the harm reduction, correct me if I'm wrong, but the unfortunate part is it's not at all the states yet, correct?
Correct.
So depending on, where they're from, once they reach out to us, unfortunately, the harm reduction hasn't picked up steam yet in all of the cities, but progress is better than no progress. So, but definitely, I've had people.
Currently here in Pennsylvania, I believe, from what I understand, I think it's Bucks County and Berks County who have acknowledged the fentanyl testers so far. It's going to be, it's going to start spreading out more where people are going to start supplying the fentanyl testers along with their kids. But Berks County and Bucks County are the ones who have started it already. So that's a good thing, and I hope that our neighboring counties start doing it as well. Because it's about the human being, not the addiction. The addiction we want to attack. We want them to drop that. But we have to start meeting the community where they're at in order for them to find the treatment that they so rightfully deserve, right?
Yes. And with the way that the drug market is today, me personally, being an opiate addict, I don't feel that these kits shouldn't be available at any place that you go for treatment. Because unfortunately, the way that the way that the world is today is when it comes to drugs, fentanyl is what you're getting usually now, rather than the actual form of whatever your drug of choice was. So I feel like in my opinion, as a grateful recovering individual with substance abuse disorder, I believe that these should be anywhere somebody is walking in, because that is what is out there nowadays. And why wouldn't you want to know? Because there are individuals that's a different conversation, but that look for that specifically. But there's still a lot of individuals who don't know. My mind is also geared to the younger addicts, the individuals who are younger in age that don't yet know they suffer from substance abuse disorder, who are kind of naive and don't have the information, the knowledge of what is out there in these drugs. So it's a very scary time, but I feel like these are very necessary.
No, that's good. So here's another thing that we struggle with in this county, and that is the services being provided to the Hispanic population, right? So, there's most services here in Berks County, they do interpretation. So during interpretation, people get lost because what people interpret is not correctly being interpreted by what the person is trying to say. So just like this show, or just like this podcast is only in English, we're still missing the Spanish population.
You have to work on your Spanish.
Yeah, my Spanish is it's funny you said that, because I do a Spanish recovery speaker series at the PA Counseling here in Reading on South 5th Street. And every time I tell them, I talk to them in Spanish, and I say, please, just try to bear with me because my Spanish is a little bad. They're like, no, we understand you. I said, well, I wouldn't go on podcast talking Spanish. So I am definitely, I'm failing in that part, so I'm doing a disservice to the Hispanic population. So I do want to start an all Spanish speaking podcast as well during the week, but just like this podcast has 17 episodes, right? That's 17 episodes that the Hispanic population has also missed out on. So, we do the harm reduction, and the directions are in Spanish and English, but we're not targeting our Hispanic population. And that is all the way across the board here in Berks County. So how can we better that in this community?
That's a good question, Lee. And I think one thing that can be done is, find someone out there who works, who, has gone through this and has the same passion that you do, who speaks Spanish. I'm sure there are people out there, but they may not know about the podcast. They may say, you know what, I know nothing about doing a Facebook Live, or, I don't have the equipment, or maybe many excuses that they're putting in front of themselves to not do it, but they can do it, and with your help, so maybe it's to cry out there and say, hey, you know what, we're looking for this, we're looking for someone who who's been through the process, who has experience, who has the passion, the desire, the heart to help out other people, and let's spread the word and see who we can find to do that.
Absolutely.
Well, I really thank you for that, because that's what I'm going to do.
Or the other thing is we can send you for some Spanish classes.
I like that one.
And the thing is, I can talk Spanish, and I am very open when it comes to English. I'm a talker, right? I can talk. But I just am not, and I'm very vulnerable when I speak, right? I'm wide open about my life. One thing, my Spanish, I do not feel comfortable talking it in front of people because I think it's terrible. And then the people I'm talking to tell me it's really not that bad. I don't like the way it sounds, so I don't talk it that much. But I do have to target my population because I'm an advocate for the Hispanic population.
I mean, I'll tell you this, Lee. When you're talking to people in need, they don't care if you pronounce the word right, if you pronounce it wrong. They care about what you're sharing with them. Your knowledge, your desire to help them out, to share your story. That's what they care about. So I'd encourage you, don't worry about that. Practice your Spanish. Right. When you're out there talking Spanish, find people that talk in Spanish and practice it. But don't let that limit you to not doing it. I'll just go back to when I moved up with my wife here 25 years ago. She knew some English, but she didn't dominate English, and it was hard for her to understand certain people when they spoke English. But she'd go out and she'd talk English, and she noticed how some people look at her, like, what are you saying? But she didn't care. Right. She said, what? I want to learn English. I'm going to learn English. And today, 25 years later, and she still makes mistakes. You know how kids are. My kids still make fun of her, but she doesn't care. She doesn't care about that. So I encourage you, do the same thing. Go out there. The only way you're going to get better is keep on doing it. Right. And if you want to start with a half-hour show, one in Spanish, I'll come on. I'll do it with you. We'll get Mayor Moran to come on and do a half-hour show with you. All in Spanish. No English. We'll do it all in Spanish, and that way you can practice.
Hey, that sounds like a great idea, and I really appreciate that, Mike. Because we do need to target the Hispanic population. As we all know, you're a county commissioner, but you also do a lot of work here in the city of Reading. And the largest majority here is Hispanics here in Reading, and the lack of services is there. There's not enough services for our Hispanic population. And I believe I've shared this with Josh before, that our Hispanic Recovery Speaker Series is always packed because of that, the lack of services to them. So whenever there is a Recovery Speaker Series, the room is jam-packed. So we definitely need to do more for the Hispanic population. I thank you so much for encouraging me to do that, and I believe I will do that shortly. I don't know how soon, but shortly I will, because it's something that has to be done. We do this on a regular, week in, week out. We've been doing it for 4 months now? And it's going great. We get a lot of response, and I think that we would get the response that we're looking for if we also do it in Spanish. So thank you for the encouragement, and I'm definitely gonna work on that.
Absolutely. I mean, I do too. Obviously, my last name is Camacho, and if you know me, I don't speak any Spanish at all. I would love to, I always think about that. That's something that's always in me, to get to know that side of my heritage, of my story. I went to Puerto Rico one time. It was amazing. It was beautiful. You couldn't tell me I wasn't Puerto Rican that day. And it's just, I'll grab Rosetta's stone. We can learn together. You can teach me, we can figure it out. But what I love about the commissioner is just the same way that we always talk to each other is just that it's the same way that when we're targeting our audiences, there's a way to figure it out. No matter what the barrier is, no matter what it is, I've done it forever. My wife will tell you that I come up with 2 or 3 reasons of why I can't do nothing. She chops them right down, and then there I am standing there. So you just always got to continue to move forward. And I think it's a great idea, and I know you'll put it together.
Thank So, as everybody knows, this is an outreach. The podcast is an outreach. We don't get paid for this. But if there is any volunteers out there that are willing to help me start a Spanish podcast, please reach out to me. And if you're not a person in recovery, that's okay. You can talk. I can give you the information. We can sit down together and have a show in Spanish and target the Hispanic population. So there you go. Anybody wants to talk, let me know. We'll start working on that so we can put it together here in the coming month. So now that we were talking about the Hispanic population, what do you think the barriers are for the Hispanic population coming out, asking for help? Because I know that the Hispanic population is very prideful, right? So pride, shame, all that stigma. Because even the moms there's a lot of single moms in this area that live alone with their kids. What are the barriers in the home that you believe that the Hispanic population struggle with just to ask for help?
I think one of the primary ones is when I was growing up, my dad would always say, don't show weaknesses. Don't let people know how you feel. Always, even though you're destroyed inside, make sure that you look strong, because if not, people are going to take advantage of you. People are going to think you're weak. So you always have to look strong. You always have to look like you're in control and on top of everything. And I think that's part of the Hispanic culture. So that's one of the reasons that we're not taught to open ourselves and say, you know what, I need help. I'm going through this situation. As you know, in Hispanic families or in Hispanic culture, families are also very important, tight-knit families. So for many families also, it's a matter of going back to the talk about shame. Mijo, don't do that. You're going to put shame on our family. Don't let people know that you're going through that. You're going to put shame on our family. So there's that stigma around looking for help and confiding someone, hey, I need help. This is what I'm going through. I need help. So it's try to work through it. As a family, your family's there for you. You don't need any help outside. I think that's one of the biggest barriers for the Hispanic community, to actually reach out and look for that help.
Yeah, one thing I remember going back many, many years ago, I grew up with step-parents, but the mothers in the Hispanic population, they really take care of their youngest sons. For some reason, it's always been that way. And they would do whatever it took to save that boy's life, no matter what they did wrong. Give him money, give him a bed to sleep, give him food so they eat, make sure you go to bed, fed. And that's something that still continues to happen because there's so many single moms. So they rather keep the secret and just making sure that she's there for, that they're there for their son, which is sad. But just know that there's other people out here for the loved ones that are struggling with this issue, that you can reach out to us. And if you know that your son or your daughter is struggling with their own addiction, it's okay to reach out. Don't worry about the shame. All that goes away once their life starts getting better. We can have them, we can guide them to finding transitional living, to get into a sober environment. Start working a program of recovery. Go to BCPS like Mike was talking about. Now, BCPS is they work with people that have been in the judicial system, so you have to have had prior jail time, come on out, and then you can go there and join the R3 program, where they can help assist you with finding employment, building resumes, and so forth, and continue to better their life. But again, like Josh said earlier, it's all a process. It goes over time. People want to get sober, but they want everything to be better tomorrow, and it's not gonna be. Things might get a little worse before they get a little better. So you just have to stay committed to your recovery.
Yeah, because the things like Lee touched on at the end there, things might get a little bit worse because once you start to put in the process of recovery, you start kind of really thinking about and realizing how messed up you really were. This is a process that happened for me. So having to put all of this stuff together, you know, when you're out there, you're disconnected, you're self-medicating. It's kind of like F the world, it doesn't matter. You know, I don't care what's going on over there as long as I'm okay, you know, in here. But once you take a step back, you eliminate that substance or alcohol, whatever you're into, then you have to kind of like put down a list, you know, and what do I have to get together? You know, a lot of times what I've been able to help with people with recently is trying to get their driver's license, figure out how they're able to, do they owe fines, this, that. So it can be stressful to have to make appointments, meet the appointments, but at the end of the day, don't become discouraged by that. Become more motivated by it, because, you know, as we put these lists together, we start checking them off, and man, does it feel good to start checking those boxes. You know, I remember I drove for so long without a license, so long. That's why I help anybody who calls me. I just actually was able to help one of my cousin's friends last week pay his off to be able to go for his permit. I help anybody because it's just so, I never thought I'd have a driver's license, and now not only do I have a driver's license, you know, I have my own truck that's insured, that if anything happens to it, you know, so it's just, once you start living this lifestyle, you start to put these things together. But like Lee said, it can get a little bit stressful at the beginning, but don't let it discourage you. Only use that as motivation to, you know, really put this thing together, you know.
And you got to remember that currently in the stage that you're at, there's nothing but barriers, right? We built all those barriers in front of us.
Yeah.
Not having insurance, not having an ID, not having a job. All those barriers are those are repercussions of our daily use of mind-altering substance, right? We do anything to go pick up a drink. We'll do anything for our next drug. How about reaching out for some services, you know, of treatment, and then get linked up with myself, Josh, or anybody, any other services in the community that can help guide you along the way to start obtaining all those things that are missing, so you are able to have a driver's license, so you are able to have medical insurance, so you are able to have a job, so you are able to start a program of recovery and a transitional living program. Those are the things that need to happen in your life for life to start getting better.
I think something that's important, and Josh spoke to this earlier about, you know, people ask you why did you turn your life around, why did you change it, and what did you say?
I just didn't want to go out like that.
Okay, so you understood where you were, and you said, I have to do something. It's not Lee has to do something for me. It's not, you know, you said, I don't want to go out like this. I want to change, and it was a choice that you made.
That's right.
I'm sure you didn't do it by yourself. You didn't change by yourself. You had people that supported you, that helped you through this process. But the desire to change came from you, because no one else can do that. You have to have that desire. You have to want to change and better yourself. But you have to start with the decision. You can't do it alone. But the decision is yours alone to make, and then you have the support services there that are going to help you through that process and help guide you. Because every step of the way, there's going to be something there to try to knock you down, but that's why you need the support. But the choice has to start with you. No one can make that decision for you.
Absolutely.
That's a good point.
When you're going through any process, it doesn't have to be as life or death as the addiction that I suffer from. But if you're looking for the negative, you're gonna find the negative. If you walk into a restaurant and you want to break down that restaurant, you're gonna see a little fruit fly on the wall, or you're gonna see the trash on the floor. I believe in that because that was who I was. I would walk into a pristine building and I'd find a crack in the roof, and I'd be like, "Oh, this place ain't all what it's cracked up to be." Because my defense mechanism was to build up as many excuses as I possibly could, so that way when an individual wanted to help me, or my significant other, my wife would want to help me, I'd have to have the ammo to shoot her down. You know, no, Tina, this is not what you do. Listen. But I learned that over time, I was only hurting myself. And at 35 years old, I'll be 36 in July, I still find things that are kind of coming back around the corner and still get in my way from all the time that I've wasted, and it just motivates me to get them done. And the biggest thing that we try to do is, and what I like to speak personally, not that Lee does it, but the biggest thing that I like to do is help anybody who's willing to help themselves not waste so much time. Because the biggest thing that I regret in my life, I've done a lot of things that I regret. The time wasted is something that really means the most to me.
That's a good point. Thank you, Josh. I just wanted to touch on, how long did you say you didn't have a license for?
Man, it was like 15 years.
Yeah. I drove illegally for 28 years.
Yeah.
And I still remember the day that I went to the DMV, Julie was with me, and I got my license back. And it was the weirdest thing because I felt like I was 17 again. And I was like, man, I'm jumping around, I got my license. And here, you know, I'm excited at that moment, but then I went home that night and I was thinking, if I wouldn't have done all that dumb stuff back then, I could have held on to my license and not had to worry about going back to get it when I was 43.
But you know me, I'm a crier. So on the way back, I had to pull over. You can ask Tina, I don't care. I was crying. I just wanted to keep looking at it.
Yeah, it's a great
It was like a big deal. We drove up to Lancaster, and I was just, you couldn't tell me nothing. That was another day. Like, when I accomplished things that I thought I never would, those are the best days of my life. You know, you couldn't tell
And
me
great
anything.
things.
You have to celebrate those days, right?
Great things
And
happen.
the little things, you know, you celebrate those small things, and then before you know it, man, you're celebrating big things. You know,
Yeah.
that's unbelievable.
Yeah, great things happen in recovery. You know, I go on vacations. You're going to go on a vacation this year. I go on vacations. I spend quality time with my grandchildren. I love my grandchildren. Like Mike touched on that earlier, you know. And as soon as he said it, I was thinking about my grandkids. You know, my grandkids are everything to me. My daughter is everything to me. All my children are. But when it comes to my grandchildren, it's like you're able to be there for them and support them and just love them. And they don't even know the person you were, right? But you're able to give them love today. And that's the most beautiful thing in the world. When I have them, they like Julie better. They like Julie a whole lot better. But when they're in my presence, it's like you just have all these, like, the time that you have had with them, it's so overwhelming with love, and it's just a great feeling. So recovery has blessed my life with so many different things. I've met great people along the way, and I have a newfound life, a life that I can't replace with anything in this world. I have great friends. I have a lot of people in the community that talk to me. I mean, there was a time where people just used to walk by me and I just existed. I was non-existent actually because nobody even knew who I was. All they knew was that I was a junkie and I was crazy and I was always in trouble. But today it's not that way anymore. So I, encourage you that if you are struggling with this deadly disease of addiction, reach out. Find the services that you need so badly in your life. To get a program of recovery started in your life, and feel what we're feeling today, along the way. Have people encouraging you, whether it be church, whether it be AA, NA, Dharma, Celebrate Recovery. It doesn't matter the pathway, there's going to be somebody there to help assist you along that way without no, what's the word I'm looking for? No judgment. Correct, thank you. So, with that said, I'm going to leave the floor to Commissioner Mike and let him touch on the community before we close up here today. And again, thank you so much, Mike.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Something I did want to ask you, I heard about Josh's why. What's your why?
Well, I got so tired. I was just talking about my daughter. I get emotional when I talk about my daughter. My daughter was 13 when I came into recovery. And the reason I came into recovery was because my daughter told me that I wasn't anything. She's like, you're crazy. She didn't love me. She just wanted a dad, and she was embarrassed of me. So I got tired. I got tired of having to be homeless and sending my kids to my neighbors. I shared this with you. It's in the book. We were supposed to move into a new place, and I spent the money on drugs and alcohol. And when we closed the truck, I didn't have a place for us to go. So from that time, for 8 months, her mom and myself were homeless, no house. And then my daughter and my stepdaughter ended up staying with neighbors until we got our stuff right. We got back 8 months later, we regained our home, and then I think it was about a month later I got my last DUI. And I was hurt because I got a DUI, but at the same time I was like, what am I doing? You know, there's something wrong. You just obtained your house, you got a good job, and now you got a DUI. And my kids looked at me as if I was a failure. And I just got tired. So I ended up going to church a month later. And when I went to church, you know, the pastor was talking. He was Venezuelan, so he had a deep accent. And he did an altar calling. And I've seen my whole life flash in front of me, Mike. The good, the bad, everything. And I just kept crying and crying and crying. And I went up to the altar and I gave my life to God that day. And probably 3 months later, I came home from church, and I just shared this with you the other day. I came home from church and I told my daughter, I said, today we're going to start hugging around here. And she just looked at me like, this guy crazy. And when I hugged her, Mike, she tensed up like it was the most unfamiliar thing she ever had in her life. Sorry. So from that day, you had to ask this question, didn't you? So from that day to today, we've been hugging. And over time, that unfamiliar physical touch that she had from her father, it grew. So today, every time she sees me, she just hugs me. Without even knowing, she just hugs me and tells me she loves me. She'll call me, I love you, Dad. She's very, I'm her dude. Like, she'll call me, and me and Julie, we've been together 7 years, going on 8. And in the beginning, it was hard for her to accept Julie because I'm her dad, you know, and I was with her mom, and her mom, you know, that's all she ever wanted. But over time, that has gotten better with her. She accepts Julie. She loves Julie. My grandkids come to Julie. So it's tough. But the whole reason that I'm in recovery was because I was a failure as a father. And I didn't want to continue being that failure. Today, my daughter tells me she's proud of me. That's the biggest thing, that when my daughter wrote to me, and she said to me, Dad, I'm so proud of you, you know, how far you've come. That's like the world to me. She went with me to Harrisburg when I received an award from PACE. And she was so proud of me being up there speaking. I was their keynote speaker. And she stayed out there the whole weekend with me. And that's the joy that I've received in my life through my recovery. Just my daughter being able to witness all the good things that I am doing today. So yeah, my daughter was my motivation, and that was my why. She actually, in 9th grade, I believe it was, she wrote a letter I never knew about, and that letter is in this book. How she felt about me then. Mm-hmm. And she talks about, she was embarrassed of me. She would, not invite kids over to my house because I was a drunk, and I was very loose with my lips. And I would say, just like I am today, positive, I was that person, but very obnoxious. And to the point, I just let you know what it was. And I didn't care. It was very embarrassing.
So, two very powerful whys today. So great being here, and thank you for sharing your stories here. Thank you for having me on this program here.
Thank you for
There's resources out there. If you don't know what they are, please reach out here to Josh and to Lee. But it's important that you look for that help. It's important that you find within you that why and that you want to make that choice to change yourself. No one can make that choice for you. You will have people, organizations that are going to be there to help you, to walk you through it. But no one can make the choice for you. You have to make that choice. So if you're thinking about it, spend some time today, think about what's your why and make that choice.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here. And just my final thought is just know that, that there really are some great people. And if we continue to move forward, I'm going to continue to be a voice for I want to add the proper terminology for where the urban community, is that what I'm supposed to say? Because I was going to say for my people from the hood, but I want to be politically correct. So for the urban community, I'm going to be this voice. I'm going to continue making this conversation one that is not to be ashamed of, one that is not had behind closed doors, one that we can have publicly and be proud of. So that way, if we have this conversation, we can continue to implement change, and change brings better days, and that's what we're all looking for. So thank you for guys tuning in, and take us out.
Amen. Amen. Thank you so much, everybody, for supporting our weekly podcast. And again, have a great week. God bless you all. And if you need help, just reach out. My number is 484-772-7079, or you can hit up my Facebook Messenger. Have a good week. See you next week.
God bless you guys.
Thank you.